Shalom. This is Hebrew for the Rest of Us, Chapter 1. Welcome. In this chapter, we're trying to accomplish several objectives. Students need to be able to write the letters of the Hebrew consonants in order. You'll learn the names of the letters. You'll learn to understand two kinds of dagesh. You'll learn what that is and why it's important later on. You'll also learn to transliterate the Hebrew letters into English letters, and that'll be delayed until the next video. How are we going to accomplish these goals? Well, we're going to learn how to write the letters, and we'll learn the letters by writing them, and we'll practice writing the letters in order, and then we'll practice naming the letters, and then we'll say the sounds that the letters make. What are you going to need? You should have some lined paper. Ideally, you would have something with a dotted line in the middle, just like they use for children. It's how you learn to write. And then you're going to need something to write with, and then you're going to need patience. It takes time to become familiar with the shapes. Practice writing the letters in order. Show them to your friends and family. Impress them. Have fun. I tell you what, teach someone the letters, and then you'll really learn. And remember, you can do this. Let's begin learning the shapes of the letters. Just in terms of first things, there are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. They are all consonants. We're going to learn about vowels in chapter 3. There are 34 forms to learn, however. 22 letters, 34 forms. You have the 22 letters. One of those 22 letters can make two different sounds that are distinguished by the location of the dot above the letter. 6 of those 22 can have a dagesh, a dot, in the middle of the letter that make distinctive sounds. And then 5 of the 22 have a different shape when they are written at the end of a word. And these are called final forms. And you add all of that up, and you get 34 forms. The sounds will be given as they are in Hebrew for the Rest of Us, and as they are in modern Hebrew. I currently teach my students a modified modern Hebrew system of pronunciation. I'll have them both in here, and you can do whatever you like. Or, if you have a teacher, whatever they like. So I've divided the letters into the narrow letters and the wide letters. And this is a helpful thing in learning to write them. So let's begin with the narrow letters. And then I'm also moving from the simplest letters to the most complex letters. The simplest letter is Yod. What I have here is lined paper. As you see, there's a dotted line in the middle. And then I have a red box. And this will help you see what are the wide and the narrow letters. So the Yod is a simple letter. It's just a one-stroke letter. You start at the top and curve your way down. So you should practice writing this a few times. And as you write the Yod on your lined paper, you should repeat the name, Yod, Yod, Yod. The next letter, Vav. In the book, I pronounce this wow. The ancient pronunciation of this letter was probably like a W sound, but very few people pronounce this as a W. It's always pronounced as a V. So Vav, but it's spelled W-A-W. It starts out just like the Yod, but it extends all the way to the base line. Now, one of the things that you'll notice in Hebrew is that unlike English, where the letters sit on the bottom line, Hebrew letters hang from the top line. Next, the final nun. I'm not giving you these in alphabetical order. I'm moving from simplest to complex. This starts out just like the Yod, but it actually extends below the line. So that's final nun. The next letter is nun. And it starts out just like the Yod and the Vav, but then when you get to the baseline, you have a little foot there. Next, you have the letter Zayin. Zayin is a two-stroke letter. So here's your first stroke. It's slanted, and it starts on top. And then the next line extends all the way to the base. It's very important that you have that crossing over so that it doesn't look like the Vav. The next letter is Gimel. It starts out just like the Nun. The second stroke is a little heel that goes on the back. And that's all the narrow letters. Let's go to the wide letters. The first one is Kaf. So you see it starts at the top and goes to the base and curves all the way to the left side. And it looks kind of like the Nun, only it's wide. So when you write it, be sure that you make a distinction between the Nun and the Kaf. The next letter is Pei. The first stroke is just like the Kaf. The second stroke sort of looks like a little 6. The way I learned to write the letters was by including all of the little flourishes. You wouldn't have to. For example, at the top left corner, I have a little upstroke on the letter. It's fine if you don't include that. The little 6 is necessary, but you wouldn't have to have the little curve at the bottom. So if you don't want to include those, you don't have to. The next letter is a final Pei, and it starts out like the Kaf, but when you get to the baseline, it just extends below the line. And the next stroke is to add that little 6. The next letter is Samech. It's a one-stroke letter. It goes around in a circle, and you'll notice that the circle closes, but there's still that little line up at the top. The next letter is Kof. And the first stroke of the Kof is just like the Kaf, only on the baseline it doesn't go all the way over to the edge. This is very important. The second stroke is a vertical stroke, and you'll notice that there's no contact with that first curve. The next letter is Resh. This is a one-stroke letter that's quite simple. You start at the top and you go down to the line. Again, it's very important not to confuse this with the Vav. You need to make your Vav a narrow letter. The Resh is a wide letter. The next letter is Hey. This is a two-stroke letter. The first stroke is just like that Resh. The second stroke is a vertical stroke on the left side, and this is absolutely essential. Notice that there is a space between the left leg and that first stroke. It must not touch. This is the Hey. Why do you have to make sure that that doesn't touch? You'll see with the next letter. This is a Het. The first stroke is the same as the Resh and the Hey, but the second stroke actually makes contact. That's the only difference. But these are different letters and they have different sounds. The next letter is Tav. And this letter begins just the same way. The first stroke is just like the Resh. The second stroke starts at the top, makes contact, and you have a little foot at the bottom. And this foot is essential, otherwise you can't distinguish the Tav from the Het. The next letter is Bet. Bet starts out just the same way as the Resh. The second stroke is just a baseline. And you'll notice at the bottom right, there's a little short extension. This is called a tittle, if you want to call it something. And you have to have the tittle on the Bet, or you can't distinguish that from the Kaf. So it's very important. This takes practice. You can do it. The next letter is a final Mem. It's a one-stroke letter. It sort of forms a box, and you'll notice that there's a little corner taken out on the top left. It's important that you make this kind of a squarish shape so that it doesn't look like the Samech. Make your Samechs a little more narrow and round, and make the Mems more squarish. Next letter is a Dalet. This is a two-stroke letter. Your first stroke is horizontal. The second stroke is a vertical stroke. And notice once again, in the top right corner, there's a tittle. That's how you distinguish the dalet from the resh. The next letter is a final kaf. This starts out just like the dalet, and then the second stroke is just like the dalet, but it extends below the line. Once again, you've got the tittle up there in the top right, and you really need to have that extend below the line so you can distinguish that from the dalet. The next letter is the aleph. This is a three-stroke letter. So this is where having the box, or at least imagining this box, can help. Your first stroke should go from the top left to the bottom right. The second stroke begins in the top right corner and comes down to the first stroke, somewhere below the halfway point. And the third stroke begins at the first stroke, and you have the little foot at the bottom. Here the foot isn't necessary. I'm just showing you how I learned to write the letters. The next letter is ayin. Ayin is a two-stroke letter. You see, this starts from the top right corner, goes down to the bottom line about in the middle, and then extends over to the left edge. The second stroke starts in the top left corner and goes down near the middle. So this is ayin. The next letter is tzadeh. This is a little bit tricky, and once again, imagining or actually drawing a box can help you with this letter. It's a two-stroke letter. The first stroke starts in the top left corner, goes to the bottom right corner, and then extends along the line all the way across. The second stroke starts in the top right corner and meets the first stroke in the middle. Tzadeh. Next we have the final tzadeh. The first stroke kind of looks like the final nun, but notice that it's in the left side of the box and not the right side. And that's because you have the second stroke that goes from the right side and meets down in the middle. So that's final tzadeh. Next you have the sin. It's not sin, it's sin. This is kind of a four-stroke letter. Here's your first stroke. It's kind of like the ayin. Starts in the right-hand corner. It slants inward and forms a base, but notice that that baseline isn't the full width of the letter. You have to leave a little room. The second stroke starts at the top and goes down to the base. And then we're going to draw another line in the middle. We'll start in the middle at the top and extend to the bottom left intersection of the first two strokes. So if you can imagine, this kind of looks like a molar. And then you have a dot above the left shoulder. It's very important that you remember that that's above the left shoulder for the sin, because you're going to need to know that for the next letter, which is shin. Shin is actually the word for tooth. So that's why I told you about the molar image. It can help you remember. So the first three strokes are all the same. But then the dot is on the right. Now here's the thing. You got two letters, and the only difference is what shoulder you're going to place that dot on. If you can just remember that shin is right, that's what you need to remember. You can figure out the sin. So shin, dot's on the right. Shin is right. And the shin is used much, much more frequently than the sin. So use that to remember. Next, we have the mem. Now, this isn't the final mem. This is how you'll see it most of the time. It's a two-stroke letter. The first stroke is that vertical stroke on the left side of the box. The second one is a curved stroke. And notice how that baseline does not close up at the bottom. That's important so that you don't confuse it with other letters. Next, you have the tet. And the tet, in the book I tell you that it's a one-stroke letter. It might be easier for you to make this a two-stroke letter. After you start writing fast, you're going to want to just make it one stroke. But here you go. The first stroke is going to take some practice. You have the curve at the top, and then you have that base that doesn't run the full width of the letter. And the second stroke has the little angle at the top, and it curves and goes down to the bottom. Again, the little angle or flourish at the top left isn't necessary. What is necessary is that it does not close at the top. So make sure those lines don't touch at the top. The next letter is lamed. This is one of my favorites. It's the only letter that extends above the line. So you start at the top, go across the full width of the letter, and then on your downstroke, you're going to have that end about the middle of the letter. So that's going to take you some practice as well. So we've completed the alphabet. That's all the letters. Once you've learned to write them, that's it. Next, we need to learn them in order. Sometimes you'll be using biblical resources that give the Hebrew words in order, and you need to know alphabetical order. So there's some things that can help you. First, learn them in smaller groups, and that's what we'll do today. Second, you can also learn the song in the back of the book. Third, you can write them from memory often. Practice writing the letters of the alphabet in order. Once you've learned the shapes, and that's what we did in the first section, was learning from simplest to more complex. Then practice writing them in order. All right, here we go. The first 5. This would be your first group. You've got the aleph. In Hebrew, for the rest of us, the sound is silent. And it oftentimes is, but in modern Hebrew and in ancient Hebrew, it's actually a plosive. It's sort of like the sound between the words the end, where you begin the word end with this, what we call a glottal stop, or it's a little plosive sound. So that's aleph. Next is bet. Now you'll notice that the bet has a dot in the middle of it. We call that the dagesh. Now we're going to spend a little bit more time later on explaining in more detail about the dagesh. For now, I just want to say that there are 6 letters that can be used either with or without this dagesh. And it was meant to indicate 2 different sounds for each letter. These days in modern Hebrew, they don't make as many distinctions. So I'm going to give you the pronunciations both in Hebrew for the rest of us and as used in modern Hebrew. I am recommending that you use a modern Hebrew pronunciation here. And then if you ever go to Israel, it'll help you. But I will give you both here, and you can follow whatever system you like or whatever system your teacher recommends. So, bet with the dagesh makes the sound b, as in boy. And this is true also for modern Hebrew. Here's bet without the dagesh. And it makes the sound v, as in very. And once again, this is also true in modern Hebrew. So bet with dagesh is b. Bet without dagesh is v. Next you have gimel. And you'll notice again the dagesh in the gimel. It makes the sound g, as in girl. Modern Hebrew does the same thing. Here's gimel without the dagesh. But we're not going to make any difference in sound. So this is g, as in girl, any way you slice it. Here is dalet with dagesh. It makes the sound d, as in dog. Same is true in modern Hebrew. Here is dalet without the dagesh. In HRU, I give you the pronunciation th, as in the. It's a voiced TH sound. In modern Hebrew, they do not make a distinction between with and without the dagesh, so it's just d as in dog. And rounding out our first 5 is the letter he. He makes the sound h as in help. This is true also in modern Hebrew. All right, let's review the alphabetical order of the first 5 letters. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He. Let's go on to the second 5. The next letter is the letter Vav. In Hebrew, for the rest of us, I gave the pronunciation as a W, like the word way. In modern Hebrew, it's pronounced v, as in very. And you should definitely use the modern Hebrew pronunciation here. Next letter is Zayin, and it makes the sound z, as in 0. Modern Hebrew is identical. The next letter is Het, and as for the sound, we just don't have this sound in English. A lot of people say it's kind of like the CH in chemistry. Same thing in modern Hebrew. The ancient pronunciation was more down in the throat. We tend to say the in chemistry is in the back of the mouth, but the het is really more down in the throat. And if you want to practice making the het down here, that would be nice. A lot of times when people are joking about Hebrew, at this point they'll say, yeah, this is where Hebrew you spit all over the people and they go, but that's really not what this letter is like. It's het. And so that's the modern Hebrew. In terms of how are we going to indicate this sound in English, it's kind of like the in blech. So that was the nearest I could come up with as an English equivalent. Tet. This is the T sound as in 10. And this is true also in modern Hebrew. Yod. This makes the Y sound as in yell. Modern Hebrew is identical. So that's the second group of 5. Let's review those. Vav, Zayin, Het, Tet, and Yod. All right, that's the first 10. We're going to take the last 12 and put them in groups of 4. Here we go, the first group of 4. Kaf. Once again, you'll notice Kaf with the dagesh in the middle. It makes the K sound as in kangaroo. Modern Hebrew is the same sound. Here's Kaf without the dagesh. Now here we are going to make a distinction. This is more like the CH in chemistry. You blow air through the K sound. So if you can make a K and blow air through it, you'll get the sound. Modern Hebrew, same thing. They make a distinction between the Kaf with and without the dagesh. The next letter is final Kaf, and this does not have the dagesh. The final Kaf actually can have a dagesh, and when it does, it makes the sound k, and when it does not, it makes the sound ch. And this is true both in modern Hebrew and in Hebrew for the rest of us. The next letter is Lamed. It makes the sound l, as in loud. It's the L sound. This is true in both HRU and modern Hebrew. The next sound is Mem. Makes the sound as in Mary. Same in modern Hebrew. And the final Mem, it makes the same sound. You'll notice that there's no difference in the sounds made by regular letters and their final forms. And our fourth, the Nun, it makes the sound n, as in noun. Same as in modern Hebrew. And the final Nun makes the sound n, as in noun. So let's review this first group of 4. you have kaf and final kaf, lamed, mem and final mem, nun and final nun. So when you're learning to write the alphabet in order, you will want to include the final forms. But in terms of the names of the letters, it's just kaf, lamed, mem, nun. Something else that can help you here, the order of our alphabet actually comes from the Phoenicians, and the Hebrews got it from the Phoenicians. So this is just like KLMN in English. That's why our alphabet has that order. So that can help you remember the order of the Hebrew letters. Kaf, lamed, mem, nun. Second group of 4. Here we go. Samech, it makes the sound s, as in see. Modern Hebrew, same thing. The next letter is ayin. In Hebrew, for the rest of us, it just makes a silent sound. There is no sound. But in modern Hebrew, it's just like the aleph. It's that plosive sound, like between the and end. But I'm recommending to my students using a modified modern Hebrew sound where we actually make a distinction between the aleph and the ayin. And the ayin begins down in the throat. It's kind of like the sound gulp without the g. So if you can kind of come up with an ol, and then it's that ol at the very beginning, that's kind of the sound of the ayin. If that's too much work for you, then just go with the modern Hebrew sound and have it be that glottal stop or that plosive silent sound. Ayin or ayin. The next letter is pe. Here's pe with the dagesh, and you'll notice that it makes the sound p, as in paint, just like in English. Same as in modern Hebrew. Here's pe without the dagesh, and it makes the sound ph, as in photograph. The same as in modern Hebrew. They make a distinction between pe with and without the dagesh. Here's final pe. Final pe never has the dagesh, so it's always going to make the sound f, as in photograph. Next letter is tzade. Tzade makes the sound ts. Now in English, we never begin a word with this consonant cluster, this ts sound. But we don't have any problem putting it at the end of words, like hits. But if you can practice saying ts, then that's what you need to do. It's the same in modern Hebrew. Ts, tzade. Here's a final tzade, and it makes the same sound. So let's review our second group of 4. Samech, ayin, pe and final pe, tzade and final tzade. We're almost there. Third group of 4. These are the last 4 letters. Here's kof. The sound that it makes is like the Q in bouquet. So it's going to be indistinguishable for us from the K. Modern Hebrew, same thing. You'll notice also in English words, we always like to have the Q followed by a U. In Semitic languages and Hebrew, including Hebrew, that's not true. This is why when you read about the Dead Sea Scrolls and you hear about Qumran, Qumran is spelled Q-U-M-R-A-N, but it's not Qumran or anything like this. It's just Qumran. The U has its full quality as a vowel, and the Q is a consonant all by itself. So this is kof. The next letter is resh. In Hebrew, for the rest of us, the sound is given as R, as in red, and that works. In modern Hebrew, it's a gutturalized R, like French, so it's r. The next letter is sin, and this is the letter with the dot over the left or the right-hand shoulder. Remember, sheen is right. This is the sin. the sound that it makes is S, is S, as in see. And this is the same as in modern Hebrew. So there's no distinction in sound between the seen and the samic. The next letter is sheen, and there you see the dot above the right-hand shoulder. Remember, sheen is right. The sound is sh, as in shed. And finally, we have the letter tav. Here's tav with the dagesh, and it makes the sound t, as in tin. There's no distinction between the t sound of tav and that of tet. In the ancient world, there probably was, but it's long gone. In modern Hebrew, the same thing. And here's tav without the dagesh. In Hebrew, for the rest of us, the sound is given as the th in thin. So it's different than the in for the dalet without dagesh. This is voiceless. It's th, as in thin. The modern Hebrew sound is identical to tav with the dagesh. Let's review the third group of 4 letters. We've got kof, resh, seen, and sheen. And you'll notice that I always write the Hebrew letters in order from right to left because that's the direction Hebrew is written. But I write the English letters left to right because that's the direction that we write English. So you have to work your way from the center, seen and then sheen. And then finally you have tav. And that concludes the alphabet. Shalom. Yivarechecha Adonai. May the Lord bless you.